Now, I'm sure absolutely everybody wishes that Liverpool was still in with a shout of winning the Champions League this season. But if there is a small upside to them going out and going down to one game a week for the remainder of this campaign, then maybe it's that it gives us a bit of breathing room and an opportunity really to assess the big talking points around the club at the moment. Now, I always try and take time to read your comments and engage with them on YouTube, and I think, judging by those comments, one of the huge talking points amongst all fans really is Federico Chiesa, and specifically why he can't seemingly get in the team at the moment and get himself off that subs bench and get some starts, or even just get some more minutes off the bench. So I thought this was a really good chance to kind of examine the case for that, really have a look at how he might be used if he were to get in the team and why it hasn't happened for him so far. Why is Arne Slot seemingly so reluctant to use him? And I think a good place to start with that really is to assess performance level, not just the performance level of Chiesa himself, but also the players he's competing with for a spot in that starting 11. And I think a good place to look at really is the form of the other forwards, the ones he's trying to push past and trying to get there in place of. And you look at the form that they're in at the moment, and it doesn't make for great reading at the moment. I mean, you look at the goals scored recently. So start with Diogo Jota there. He's scored 1 goal in his last 12 appearances for Liverpool. Darwin Núñez, even worse, 1 goal in his last 15 appearances for Liverpool. Luis Diaz is 1 goal in 9. So again, not great return there. And Cody Gakpo is 1 in 8. I would say with him, there's a slight mitigation of the injury, which seems to, he seems to have struggled since he's come back from that injury a little bit. I think he is really kind of struggling with that and not finding his best form. So there is mitigation there. So don't want to be too unfair to him. But the other one's not in form. And even Mo Salah, it's now 4 games without a goal for Liverpool. For him, that is an absolutely huge drought, particularly given the form he's shown this season, albeit I think we could probably let him off the hook for that one, can't we, given the amount of goals he has scored. But as I say, the rest of the forwards there, not really in sparkling form. Now, of course, the case then is, well, how is Chiesa getting on? Is he doing better? Is he more likely to score goals? And I think one thing you could say is he's not really had a chance to score many goals. He hasn't taken to the pitch anywhere near enough. But if you are going to score goals, one thing you absolutely need to do is get shots off. I know for a fact it's one of the things that Liverpool's recruitment staff look at as a big thing, that it highlights any attackers coming through to them as potentially prolific forwards, is if they are very, very good at getting shots off. And yes, Chiesa scored some goals, but he's also very, very good at getting shots, which suggests he could, if he was given more opportunities, get more goals than he has so far this season with the limited opportunities he's been given. And the way I measure this really is his shots per 90 rate over the course of the season in all competitions is a whopping 4.96. So that is higher than any other first team player. I'd admit, yes, it's a kind of smallish sample size. I think in all comps he's only got around roughly 4.5, 90 minutes under his belt, but it's still very, very impressive. And it does tally with what we've seen. It does seem that every time he gets on the pitch, he's getting shots off, he's getting opportunities, and that 4.96, as I say, it's more than any other first teamer. I think Trent Conan-Doherty has maybe got slightly high, but of course he has very, very limited first team minutes, so he's a little bit of an outlier on that. And just to give you a comparison as well, Mohamed Salah averages 3.14 shots per 90, Jota 3, Gakpo 2.99, Núñez 2.98, and Diaz 2.36, so 4.96 from Chiesa. Even with that small sample size, I think that suggests something about him and his ability to get shots away. And it's not just that in terms of he's coming on and trying pot shots or anything like that. I think he's getting good shots at times when you watch him. And I think, you look at his performance when he comes on at Wembley against Newcastle United in the Carabao Cup final, and I thought he was bright in all aspects of his game when he took to the pitch there. Of course, he takes his goal absolutely brilliantly. Great touch right foot, great finish left foot, which, if you're two-footed in that way, that can be really helpful in terms of getting shots off. But he was also just generally dangerous. I mean, he clocks up more touches in the opposition box, which is 5, than any other player on the pitch. Bar Harvey Barnes, who played 81 minutes of that game. Harvey Barnes gets 6, Chiesa gets 5. And as I say, he only comes on in the kind of final 15 minutes or so, Chiesa. So to get more touches than any of the Newcastle players, any of the Liverpool players, excepting Harvey Barnes, is pretty good indicator that he was really, really lively and in good form in that game. And even more of an indicator than the goal he scores, which was brilliantly taken. So I think it just shows that he's, if you put him on the pitch, that he will be dangerous, he will get in the opposition box and he will get shots away, which is, one of the things you want from your forwards. And I would say about the numbers for the goals for the other forwards is, yes, you've got to take the picture as a whole, haven't you, in terms of it's not just about how many shots, it's not just about how many goals he score. Luis Diaz, for example, his work rate is absolutely indispensable, and there are other qualities that players bring. Núñez, the ability to maybe get the ball up and use him to hold it up and bounce the play off him. But ultimately, forwards are always going to live and die by how many goals you score. They need to be providing them. And Liverpool aren't getting a shed load of goals from the midfield either, so they need the forwards to be scoring. So as much as they have other aspects of the jobs, they need goals, they need shots, and that isn't happening for those players at the moment. And as I say, I thought Wembley kind of typified that, all that we've seen from Chiesa so far. And another aspect in terms of, not necessarily relating to performance, but I think is an upside to Chiesa that I've been hearing about. Now, I talked to sources around Liverpool when I wrote a piece about him recently, and they described his attitude around the place as immaculate. So it's not just that he's kind of waiting in the wings and performing well when he gets on the pitch. He's performing well in training as well. He's very well liked amongst the squad, and he's performing well and doing all the work he should be in training to get his opportunity, which is why they never countenanced the possibility of selling him in January. I know there were rumours about that. So he's kind of ticking an awful lot of boxes for any player should be ticking if they want to get chances in the first team. But unfortunately, they're just not falling his way at the moment. Now, I guess the big question there is, okay, if he is going to come in, who is it going to be for? Which position is he going to play in? Which area of the pitch? Which players is he going to directly replace? And I think, it's clear looking at the numbers that the biggest goal droughts there are Jota and Núñez. It's fair to say that the centre-forward role has not been locked down at all this season. I think we've seen another season of inconsistency from Darwin Núñez, which we've come to expect from him. I think Luis Diaz was used there, but it is an experiment, and he is far better on the left wing. And of course, Jota hasn't really grasped the nettle since he's come back from injury. He struggled for form. I think he's slightly turned in a corner recently, but he hasn't quite looked his best recently when he started. So, like I say, nobody has said that number 9 shirt is mine and I should absolutely be starting there. And so there's been a bit of a kind of growing call for Chiesa to be starting in that number 9 position, and I understand that. He isn't just a winger. We have seen him in central positions for Italy, for Juventus previously in his career, so he is very comfortable in those central roles. Maybe previously more as an attacking midfielder than an out-and-out centre-forward, but Liverpool ask a lot in terms of build-up from their centre-forward. It does become that kind of false 9 role, really, and they've got to show a lot of midfield quality. So if he's got those, to me, kind of seems like a really good solution to that problem for Liverpool in terms of, he would be able to play that number 9 role, be a facilitator, as Arne Slot has spoken about, but also someone who gets shots and gets goals as well. So he's just got a lot, I think, to offer, particularly in that role. So I guess you have to question them, so why hasn't it happened, really? I think the starting point with that is, of course, you cannot dismiss the fact that he's had so many injuries early in the season. He came in from Juventus having not had a pre-season. Then he had real struggles adapting to the physicality of the Premier League, or the pace and the intensity of training. So he was getting constant setbacks. So Liverpool were very, very careful with him at that point. He had to embark on kind of a mini pre-season at that point, get himself right, make sure he was fit. And the good news, I suppose, is that he did do that. He did all the work that was needed, and he got himself in good shape, and he hasn't had an injury setback for quite a while now. So he's definitely in good shape. But the problem was, once he got fit, the team was absolutely flying. They were top of the Champions League, top of the Premier League. And you've got to ask, if you're a manager, why would you upset the apple cart? Why would you change things outside of those opportunities to rotate in the domestic cups, which Arne Slot absolutely took? In the Premier League and the Champions League, you'd be thinking, can I just keep the ball rolling here? Can I keep these players in who have been playing so well? Now, obviously things have changed slightly recently. Results have dipped somewhat. 3 defeats in the last 4 for Liverpool in all competitions. But I can still kind of understand why Slot has still got that reluctance now to make changes there, because still Liverpool are so close, aren't they, to winning the Premier League title now. Is this the time at which you start experimenting with things and using him in that central role, maybe bringing him in for a Jota, for a Núñez, when these are the players that have got you to this position? I think it's a tough one for any manager to countenance that change. And it was interesting, actually, I'm talking about that central role. the manager seemed to kind of give away how he thinks about Chiesa as well. When he was asked about the possibility of him getting more minutes in a recent press conference, he was asked, why are we not seeing a little bit more of him? And he said it's partially down to kind of the position he plays. And he said, look, he's in competition with Mo Salah, and I don't think you can deny that Mo has had quite a good season. And I think that's obviously a fair point. You're not dragging Mo Salah out the team at any point soon, are you? Even after a 4-game goalless drought, I think it would be absolute madness to bring him out, because he always comes back into form. He always eventually delivers, doesn't he? So you wouldn't be making that change there. And as I say, the centre-forward role, the one area of the team I think he's got a really good shout of getting in there and keeping himself in the team from that point onwards. Is this the time where you experiment? Say you try it against West Ham in the next game and it goes completely wrong and Liverpool lose the game. You will be thinking, why did I try that now? Wouldn't I have been safer to go with Jota and Núñez, the players who've played that centre-forward role and got me to 11 points clear, rather than trying to mix things up? It does feel like a big risk, and it's easy for us to sit on the outside and say, things aren't working at the moment, you have to change. But sometimes you can change things and it can make things even worse. Sometimes you're better just kind of waiting and sitting with what you've got and hoping that players and the system clicks again and you just turn a corner, because that can happen. Football is very unpredictable. It's not always as easy as you make a change in the team when things are going wrong and then suddenly things will go right. Sometimes you make a change and it doesn't help you in any way. So that is what the manager has got to weigh up, and I do sympathise with him in that regard. So I guess really, if you're not going to see him in this kind of run-in, or certainly till Liverpool have won the title, it begs the question, when will we ever see Chiesa in the team for Liverpool? I must say, he is still looking very, very happy around the place. Great guy around training, always has a smile on his face around the place. As I say, everyone said about his attitude has been absolutely immaculate. We haven't even really heard murmurings from his agent that he's unhappy or wanting to leave. And I remember sitting in the press box for the PSG game while the penalties were going on in that game, and he doesn't even get onto the pitch in that fixture at all, and you think, should be disappointed that he's missing out here, and yet he seemed to be kicking every ball. He was living every moment of it. He really wanted Liverpool to win in a way where you've seen players in the past where they're in that difficult situation, not anywhere near the starting 11 or even getting minutes as a sub, and they may be kind of sulking a little bit. They look a bit down in the dumps. They're not as invested in what's going on in the pitch. We have seen absolutely nothing like that from Chiesa, really, which suggests to me really that there is maybe still a future for him at Liverpool, despite the fact this has been such a disappointing season for him. Maybe there's a chance with him still being happy here, still clearly wanting to make it work and showing quality when he does come in. Maybe there's a chance for him to come in the future. And I think the big opportunity could come about because we know there's going to be quite a bit of upheaval through this Liverpool squad in the summer. I've spoken about it on videos recently, the fact that so many question marks over players currently in the squad who could be sold this summer. I think, you look at Joe Gomez, for example. I think Costas Tsimikas, Wataru Endo. You start to make your way forward into the forwards, and of course then the obvious ones in Chiesa's position are Darwin Núñez, who I expect to be sold, but also Luis Diaz, 2 years out from the end of his contract. Real interest in him. No prospect of a new contract being signed, so he looks a real candidate to be moved on. So once you acknowledge that, and you know that there's already going to be changes enforced upon the squad and there's going to be changes enforced upon the front line, you've got to ask yourself, how much upheaval do Liverpool really want? Do you want to be selling 3 out of your 6 forwards at the moment and trying to replace them? I think that pretty much guarantees that you're not going to start the next season well, because you've got to bed all these players in. I think it makes it really, really difficult. So I think Liverpool would like to avoid that. So I just wonder, has the manager sat down with Chiesa and said, look, just give it your all in this last part of the season. Just stick around with me. Next season, things are going to open up for you. We're not going to have Darwin Núñez. We're going to need someone who knows the system, who can play that centre-forward role, who can come in from the start of the season, and that could be you. We're going to sign other forwards to compete, of course, but you're going to have a better shot of it because you're going to have a full pre-season, you're going to start the season fit, and you're going to be in there in contention with everyone, and you won't be coming back when the season is already in swing and I've already got my kind of favoured players and my settled 11. I just wonder whether there's been talk about that there, because as I say, no murmurings from his agent or his camp that he wants to leave. There's already quite a few forwards who are going to depart this summer, so you don't want to add to that headache if you are the recruitment staff. Now, I guess if that is going to be the case and we are going to see more of Chiesa next season, it'd be quite nice for Liverpool to get the title wrapped up as soon as possible, and then there's an opportunity over the last 3 or 4 games for him to get starts, to show more of what he's about, because I think he's shown great attitude, great patience to wait this long for his opportunity. So hopefully, as I say, Liverpool can get the wins that they need as soon as possible, and maybe that could be the start of Chiesa coming into the team and really give us a hint of seeing more of him next season. But of course, we will have to see. But I do really think there's a player there for Liverpool. It's just a case of, does Arne Slot agree? Does he think there's a future for him at Liverpool? And does the fact that several other forwards are going to depart, does that give him a bit of a stay of execution and an opportunity to build on what's been a disappointing debut season next time around? Well, we'll have to see. So do let me know in the comments what you think about that. Do you think Chiesa, would you like to see him even now? Would you like the manager to take the risk of experimenting and seeing more? Do you still think he will be around next season, or do you think he'll be sold this summer? Do let me know your thoughts on that. As I say, I do try and read every comment and try and engage with them all, and I do really appreciate everyone who leaves. And of course, if you can like the video, always massively appreciated. And if you're new to the channel, please do hit that subscribe button. We'll be back at Anfield this weekend for the West Ham game, and of course I'll be at the press conference before that, so looking forward to that. So I'll leave it there and say I'll see you guys very soon.